Hello everyone. In today's lab, we're going to do a little weight and timing animation. So we're going to animate 3 different balls. Each one will be a different type of ball. So for instance, a golf ball is going to bounce much differently than a basketball or a baseball or a softball or I don't know, a hacky sack. All these different types. Ping pong ball, if I didn't say that already. So they all bounce differently. So that's sort of, it's a little bit of practice to get used to. Now, I included a video below that has references where they drop bowling ball, all types of different balls, just straight down. And for this lab, that'll be fine. I'm going to take the first one a little bit further, and then I'll decide on which ones I'm going to do after that. But let me get my scene set up first and try to get it so you can see all the frames that I'm working with. Frame 0. Okay. So bear with me for a second. There it is. Okay, so my first frame is going to be, on frame 0 right here, right next to the mouse. So, you know what? I can probably adjust this. I'm not going to need that many frames. That's going to change things a little bit. I probably don't even need that many. I just want to make it as easy to see as possible. Maybe I'll just adjust it as I do it. All right. So that should be a little bit easier on the eyes to see which frame I'm on. I know it's a little tiny. So I'm going to start everything on frame 0. I included the bouncing ball, the ball.ma file. I'll also show you how to do this with a standard sphere as well. There we go. Was I pressing the wrong button? But I'm going to... Typically, there's only maybe, at best, 1 or 2 students that have trouble getting that file to work. But you can also use a sphere if, just in case that file's not working for you. I know it opens up saying errors with the file or whatever. The only ones that I can see that actually cause any errors is the renderer. That in the original version of Maya that this was created in, it carried Mental Ray as a renderer instead of Arnold. They switched that later. Anyway, those are the only errors that I've seen pop up. I'd have to double check it, but either way, the rig works perfectly fine for me. But I'll also, like I said, cover how to do it with the regular sphere. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bouncing ball. It's perfectly fine for you to do them just straight up and down. On the first example, though, and you can do it this way as well if you like. You can have it bounce off of walls and things like that. I'm just going to have my bouncing ball bounce across the scene, right? It's just going to go bounce once, twice, thrice, I don't know, maybe 4 times, depending. But when I do something like that, one of the things I like to do is I actually like to create a camera. So anytime I'm animating something, I don't want to, let's say, I don't want to overwork, if that makes sense. So if I can't see it, I don't want to animate it because you're not going to see it anyway. So I'm going to create a camera. I go to my camera, and then I'm just going to drag it out. And it's on my front view. So on my front view, you know what? I kind of prefer it to be on the side. Tap minus to bring that a little bit smaller. Okay. Oh, is it on the wrong side? Let's see. Doesn't really matter. Or I could even set it to be the top view. It doesn't matter. But anyway, what I'm doing with this camera is I am going to create my standalone camera here. So I'm going to click on my panels on the side view. I'm going to go to perspective and I'm going to click on camera 1. So now you can actually see what the camera sees. But if I were to render this out, I'm going to go to view and I'm going to go to camera settings and I'm going to put on my resolution gate. Now you'll see it says 960 by 540 by default. If yours is something different, that's fine. I'm going to show you how to change it right now. But the point of this is to make sure, and I'm just going to bring this back far enough so that, and I can still do it in here, right? I just like to do it with the arrows because I know I'm exactly perfect on the axes. And I'd say that's pretty good. I'll go with that. So what I like to do is I'm going to go to my render and my render settings. I'm on the rendering tab right here. And I'm going to go to render and render settings. I am now going to do, just in case, I could change this. Name number dot extension. So I changed the image format to a PNG. This is just in case I decide to render it later if I won't feel like it. And then if I want to render out the scene, I got to change my frame animation extension to name number dot extension. So if it's a PNG, that .ext would be now, you know, bouncing ball with my frame padding at 40001. The next one would be 0002, and it would render out each frame individually. So anyway, those are some of the things I set. Now my renderable camera, it could be camera 1. But this is actually the real reason why I came in here. I'm going to change my image size from HD 540, that's that 960 by 540 format. I'm going to go ahead and change it to 720, HD 720, which is a 1280 by 720 aspect. That's not an aspect ratio. 1280 by 720, basically pixel ratio, and also it's a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, which is widescreen, standard widescreen format. In back in the day, with the old box TVs you see, you know, the squares, that would be a 4 by 3 aspect ratio. Either or, just a little fun common knowledge to know, so you actually know the reasoning behind it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click close. I don't know what my start frame or end frame will be, so if I were to come back and change this, if I do decide to render it, I will. But that's pretty good. So I've got my camera 1 on X, and then I'm very pleased with the spot location. So what I like to do is I'm going to go ahead and click and drag on all of these and hit right click and do a lock selected. And that's going to bring a little blue, like a light blue square next to it, and it allows me, it doesn't allow me to do anything to it. I can't change these even if I wanted to. So those are locked. If I wanted to unlock it, I just click and drag, highlight them, and then I can do unlock selected. And you could do one at a time as well. So anyway, just a fun little tip to keep in mind when creating animation, because if I make this thing bounce like 10 times and you can only see it bounce for 3 times, I feel like I just wasted a little time. I mean, not if you're practicing, but it's definitely good to know what your viewport will be rendering if you did go that route. So I like to lock that. Now, the reason I did that is because here, instead of just having this one, at least my first one, bouncing straight up and down, we already did that, right? I'm going to have this one bounce across the screen. So I'm going to drag this over, and now I know it's right outside that grid, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag it up. 15, 12 works. So I'm going to drag it up here, and then I'm going to just basically have it bounce, bounce. It's going to bounce like twice, maybe thrice, depending on how I make these curves. Right? I'm just doing these little motions with the mouse. And anyway, so with that being said, another animation practice I really like to do, I think I showed it for Max for Maya. If not, I apologize. What I like to do is I'm going to create a... Whoops. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to my little settings box here. And I'm going to do new shelf. I'm just going to call it custom. Click OK. Shelf name is not unique. Oh, custom is already a shelf. That's why. Personal. Sure. Click OK. So now I've got a personal tab up here. So if I wanted to, let's just say I wanted like tools that I use very often. If I went to like modeling, and I went to like create, and let's just say I wanted a lot of cubes in here or something, like I can add the cube, but I deleted it. But yeah, so that's what it's for. So and you hold Control Shift and click when you do that. So if I were to do that again, holding Control and Shift, or Permanos cube, and you'll see I don't create it, holding Control and Shift, Control Shift and left click actually. You hold Control and Shift and press the left click button. It'll, whatever tab you're on, it'll add it to it. Oh, there is nothing on the custom tab. Look at that. So anyway, that's what that does. If you wanted to delete your shelf editor, I can delete the shelf contents, but here I can also delete the personal shelf itself. So pretty cool to know how to do. And then under custom, I'm going to move it all the way to the down to the end. So I just press this little down shelf right here, move down, and I moved it to the end, and that's it, and close. So with that being said, the reason I was explaining all of that, I went a little further detail than I was planning on, but I feel like it's worth it. I'm going to click on, holding Shift, all of the tools so that I can animate with. So these are all of the things that I can animate on this model, on this rig. So now I want to go to create and go to sets, and then I'm going to do, I think it's quick select set, and it is. And this is going to be ball controls. And I'm going to click add to shelf. So I have my little balls control button here that I made. So now what that does is anytime I want to select anything on this ball, I can click on it and it selects each one of those tools. So I don't have to shift select each one every single time. I now have a little shortcut for it. Instead of doing that, I just click this and it selects them all. All right, now that I've got that out of the way, I'm going to create a grid, or a polyplane, excuse me. And I'm going to use that for my ground plane. I'm also thinking I'm going to change the color of it, but let me see what it looks like in here. That's fine. Okay. And I'd like to change the color of it. So I'm going to assign a new material. I'm going to go to blend. Oh, no, you know what? We've been doing standard surface the whole time. Assign a new material, Arnold shader, AI, standard surface. And in here, we're going to change the color. And in this case, I'll make it like a dark gray. And then I'm going to turn off my grid. And I'm also going to turn down my specularity on this. So if I just do color, I think that'll do it. Yeah. So it's just a flat gray. Okay. Now I've got that out of the way. I've got my ground plane. I can also lock this, but I'm also going to rename it. And then under here, I'm going to do layer, create layer from selected, and I'm going to create ground plane layer and save. I'm also going to click this little button, this little empty box twice to bring up that R, so now it's basically a renderable item. However, I can't select it, so I kind of just locked it on in a different way. But I don't want to accidentally select it. So there's my scene so far. Now, we're about give or take 15 minutes into it. So 15 minutes of setup to just get the scene sort of professionally set up for you to get really ready to animate. Now I'm going to do most of my animating from this viewport, but I'm also going to be working in my perspective view as well. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and click on my custom shelf, and I'm going to click on my ball control. Well, let's see. Oh, there we go. I was like, what's going on? So I have to remember to press W. I guess I thought I pressed it and I didn't. And now I'm able to just move this one control. But before I create any keyframes on this, on frame 0, the first thing I'm going to do is select the ball control. And I'm going to tap S and create a keyframe on every single tool there is. Okay? So I'm going to do that. I'm going to move one at a time, but before I set a keyframe on anything, I'm going to click on my ball control and tap S on my keyboard. So I've done that now for frame 0. And I'm going to start, let's see, what would be easiest for everyone to follow with? I'm going to just do it in increments of 10 for this first ball. Or maybe even 20. So this first one will be 20 frames before it hits the ground. So I'm going to have it come down. And I'm going to move, I know my translate Y is 0. So my first bounce will be right there. And click my ball control and create a keyframe on every single one of those, okay? So, boom. Now I'm going to go to frame 40, click on just that single control, and I'm just kind of blocking out my animation. And then I'll go to frame 60. Now these probably need to be played around with a bit in terms of timing. It doesn't need to be perfect, by the way, but I definitely want you to understand the concept. And then frame 80, we're just going to move it off the screen. Oh, I might have... No, I think I did it for that frame. Okay. So now I've got my little scene blocked out. Frame 0, bounce once, bounce twice. It looks a little weird, but we're gonna fix that. So I don't love the timing of it yet, but it's this weird little, I'm going for realistically what I had pictured in my mind was kind of this 2D animation, cartoony kind of bouncing ball. So not so much to defy the weight and timing concept, but just to get, not only do, it all has to have some type of realism to it. I don't expect yours to be perfect, but I want you to try to make it visually look, the timing, just because the timing is perfectly lined up with a reference that you're using, doesn't mean it's going to look right in an animated scene. So it's something to keep in mind. Sometimes you want to sort of expand outside of the world of realism. But I do want this to be pretty accurate in terms of weight and timing. So let me just finish my example here. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to go ahead and add my squash and stretches. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. And then on my frame 20, okay, I do have the right one selected. I need to not bring that one down, I need to bring this one down. So I've got this ball. Now, the other thing, and some of these, I just want my core ones to be sort of keyframed out on every single frame. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Perfect. So on frame 17, I have full stretch, and then it squashes on frame 20. And then on my next frame, we'll do increments of 3 on my squash and stretches. Let's go full, yep. And then right here, it looks like 20, 40, and 60. Is that not on there? I messed something up. So anyway, I'm just gonna have to bear with it. I've come too far. And I'm gonna just set these keyframes up. Okay, so squash, stretch, back to normal. Frame 60. I definitely messed something up. Bring that down. And then 3 frames before it, I want this to be fully extended out. And right here, I'm going to rotate this. I'm also going to rotate this. Oh. Set that keyframe. Okay. And then 3 frames out on frame 63. I might be doing the stretch coming up too quickly. So I'm going to go here. I know you won't see this part, but it's going to affect the in-betweens between the last 2 frames. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, that's why. Okay. It's almost like I forgot to click one of these, which on my custom shelf, but I'm just going to work through it. All right. I'd say that's decent. Let's see. Perfect. So now, I could go in and fine tune this, but let me just show you a couple more tricks. If I wanted this to bounce a little bit faster, what I can do is I can hold shift, click and drag and highlight over all of the frames that I've created. Make sure you have all of your tools selected. For whatever reason, I didn't create a keyframe for everything. Maybe I thought I was holding or pressed the button, but either way. Now I can slide these. Oh, I didn't get the first one. Right? I can slide them, or stretch them, excuse me, using the slider. And now I can extend the frames at which this animates at, or I can even shorten it. So it's a really useful little tool. The one on the middle will actually slide the entire timer if you wanted to change all of the frames all together. This is great for some smaller adjustments where, oh man, I wanted it to start on frame 3 instead of frame 0. Now you can do that pretty quickly. So just clicking and dragging while holding shift highlights all of those frames, and then you can go ahead and make adjustments to your timing if you're happy with all the key poses that you created, the keyframes you've created. But I'm going to go ahead and roll with this. If I wanted to shorten it up, I could, and that's one way to do it. The other thing I want to double check to make sure I've done is I want to go to my Windows animation editor, and I want to bring up my graph editor. I don't think I've ever showed anyone yet the graph editor, but you can do some pretty neat little things. I've got all of these set, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a click and drag on all of these. Now I'm not going to go into, you'll see how much difference it makes in everything just by having everything selected and then just changing the way it's rotating and the timing and everything. So it does change everything. But I could try something. They have some kind of preset. So this is stepped. So it's going to be really just seeing every single keyframe you set. So if I have stepped, this is a great way to check your keyframes and make sure that you're happy with each one and the timing of it. Very commonly used. Using the middle mouse button scroll. I just docked it to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag and highlight all these again. And I'm going to show you so they have auto clamped, no. And just to show you what it looks like, it'll change how everything's working. But I'm hoping to show you just a quick, easy way let's try auto. Just getting a little too much slide. When it hits the ground, it's doing a little too much sliding for me. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, but I did want to cover the graph editor. I'm just trying these auto sort of spline tangents, see what they look like. I mean, it could just be my keyframes too. There's too much exaggeration in them. Let's just see what that does. So I just clicked on this. I did auto ease for in and auto ease for out. That's in and out of keyframes basically. So it's really the problem that I'm seeing here. It's going to be on my ball master control right here. So I just click that, and I don't have all the other frames out there. And it's going to be on the translate Z primarily. Just going to try something real quick. I just changed those two keyframes. Nope. I don't even have a keyframe for this one on there. Set a keyframe, and then I'm just going to literally just snap these to it. That didn't work. Getting a little too in depth with it. Let's do you'll notice as I change this, so it's gonna really change the way this thing works. So you'll see it like right around this curve here. It does some weird thing, and then it pops back up into place. That's not something I want to do. So maybe it's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. It's a little weird. I could bring it back to how I had it. But I really do need to do some tweaks on it. All right, so enough with that. I have my first bouncing ball. Now it bounces from side to side. I'm pleased with it. It's a little bit more difficult than just doing it vertically up and down. And now I'm going to move on to my next one. So for the next one, I'll do using a sphere. Now, I might not need to play around with squash and stretch and everything for every single ball I do, but let's just say I decided to do a ping pong ball. I'm going to start on my, let's say, frame 15. And if I'm done with the graph editor, I can just click and drag this off. But when I'm using it, I like to click it and dock it right here. And I can actually leave it there and it'll just, and I tap it just like this, except it's in the bottom left corner so you can't see it, but not on my screen, but you can just click on that little tab. You can see it here. When I click it, it just minimizes it and it still says it right behind me. Be a pain to move, but there we go. So, all right. So next one I'll do is going to be a ping pong ball. And the ping pong ball, if I pull up my reference, if I can find it, I can. Okay. Oh, I don't want to make it full screen. If I show you this quick little reference I got here, I'll do my best to follow it exactly. But you'll see it's just like do, 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 right? And I'll do that with the bouncing ball. Do, do. So on my bouncing ball on frame 0, I'm going to set a keyframe while my translate Y is at 20. And it's going to fall pretty quickly, I would imagine. Okay, and then at 1 is when it's going to be hitting the ground. So having the graph editor here, so you'll see, for whatever reason, that's the problem I was seeing before. Maybe you'll see it a little bit more clearly. When I hit play here, it starts to slow down before it hits the ground. So when you're looking at this green line, right, this graph here, it starts here, it starts to fall slow, and then it starts to fall even faster. This should make the easiest sense. This is frame 1, this is frame 10, right? They're labeled right here, frame 0 and frame 10. Now, as it gets to frame 8, 9, and 10, as the ball's dropping, it, for whatever, because of the graph editor, it's actually slowing down, which doesn't make sense to physics, right? So for this one in particular, on my translate Y, and on this keyframe, you really want it to just do a tangent like that. And I want to bring it back. And that's what I should have done with the other one. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but I can. When it drops, it doesn't slow down now. It just drops. If you plan on moving forward with an animation degree, your future professors and things, I know we're just learning, but they can be very, very tedious and critical on your timing of things, where their eyes catch these sorts of things. So anyway, now it just drops straight down, right? That's what I want this to look like. I want this to be like a straight down and then a V right here and then round off. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab my sphere and I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up. So can I bring this down a little bit? There we go. I just wanted to get the border of my 1280 by 720 in here. So now I'm on frame 10, 20. Let's bring it to here. Bring it back down. And this is where I want that curve, right here on my Y. So translate Y right here. And then when I come down here, on my next one, I'm going to have it come a little bit up. So let's do like 38. And 46. It should start getting faster and faster and faster. 53. 60. 65. And I haven't played this back, I'm just kind of roughing it. I'll do 70. And 74. And there's no real squash and stretch that you can see with the common eye. And this will start to be like every frame in just a second. So I'm going to go back and just play this ball. And but I do need to play around with this timeline here. I'm going to give myself more room to see here. So like these I want on the bottom. There used to be a way, you used to have to break the tangent first. It doesn't look like you have to do that anymore. Oh no, see. There we go. What is this one called? Break tangents. I just did it like subconsciously without even realizing I was doing it. All right. Break tangent. I feel much more comfortable with this ping pong ball this go around. And anyway, so now we drag this down just because I kind of fixed what I wanted to fix on my ping pong ball. And now I want to go ahead and hit play again. And you can really tell the difference that graph editor did. Now one of these frames, for whatever reason, it's going underneath. So frame 10. But it's going underneath on frame 11 and 12. Which is really odd. Okay. Not doing that with any of the other frames. There's got to be something I'm missing. So It's the only one. Ah. Play that again. There it is. Okay. For whatever reason, I wasn't seeing it before. Now I see it. Right here. This frame. Translate Y. It goes underneath this line. So, I don't know why I didn't see it before. Maybe I was on the wrong frame and didn't realize it. Now it shouldn't go underneath that grid line. And I need to fix a couple more frames. So here I'm going to break the tangents. Something's happening with this one. I'm having some kind of an ease issue with this one. Okay. It's probably from this. That's what it is. All right. So I'm pretty comfortable with this on my timeline editor, on my graph editor, on my animation editor here. And I hope this was really, really helpful. And I'll go back to my other ball, but I'd say that's a great start to the bouncing ball. Just want to make this small enough so I can see my graph or my viewport in full length. And then at the end of this sort of rolls off. Now I don't really need it to roll off. It should bounce like I don't even know. I want to say a million, but like, you know how many times it just goes and then it kind of drifts off. If you look at the reference, you'll see what I'm talking about towards the end, but just for sake of time on this, I'm going to kind of pass on that. So here, I'm just going to roll it out to frame 100. Now, I don't really need to mess around with the rotation. I hope that's moving too slow enough. Otherwise, it'll look really weird. Way too fast. So what I'll need to do, so if I'm on frame 100 on that translate, I'm going to click and middle mouse button drag with this highlighted right here on frame 100 where there's a little red line. I'm going to click and middle mouse button and I'm going to drag this out to like 150 and tap S. Now I've just copied the settings from this keyframe to this keyframe. And I can go ahead and I can delete this one. And now it should move much slower. Now, I don't have it rotating because I don't really need it to, because you wouldn't see it, at least with this current texture, if it's just one plain color, like most most ping pong balls are. There might be a logo on it, but I mean, we all think of them as just being a plain white object. Is that what the white looks like? Yeah. Well, that's the best I'm getting then. Guess it's a little lighter, I don't know. And now in my timeline, now I've got really two things. I've got to translate Z, where this ball, and I'm not going to take it out too many more frames. I'm kind of fine with it for this example. If I could spend more time getting the timing just right, I'd have to drag out my keyframes and stuff, but for sake of time, I could do a I could play around with the editor. If I click on just that keyframe, and it, I could not have, I don't have to have it roll off the screen. I was just doing it just because. I can do this little break tangent and play around. I think it's actually pretty good. I think it would probably, I do want it to ease into it. This is the one I kind of want it to. Let's just see what it looks like. Now, if I didn't have it highlighted, you would never really be able to tell that it's cool. Rolling off the screen, but you get the idea. And the final one, because I'm running out of time, I will do the hacky sack. I think these are the same ones I did years ago. I can see why now. So the last one, this will be my ping pong ball. I would do a little bit more to the timing on this, maybe play around with the graph editor. This one I wanted to experiment with, have it bounce across the screen. There's definitely a lot more in the graph editor under the animation. So if you don't remember Windows, animation editors, graph editor, it's absolutely a wonderful tool to know how to use. And if you're an animator, it's a must. You must know what it does. And I think I gave you a pretty good intro to it. The next thing is, the hacky sack. So my hacky sack, this one really just does kind of like a squash and stretch. And on my timeline, I'm going to start at 0. And I'm doing this one with just the and this I'll just go like, I have these going at like 10. So maybe this one's, since it's heavier, maybe it drops faster. And then what it does at the end, actually, and I'm going to have to toggle around with this, is it kind of does a little, I'm going to need to turn on that grid. But I don't want this to make this shape until the very, very end. And then it kind of, actually, I'm going to have to adjust that a little bit more. It actually takes more of a little bit of a shape change. Just hope I didn't make it too big. I ended up looking more like an egg. And And that's because right before it hits the ground here, make it a little bit bigger. All right, and then what I'll do is, so for every frame I need to have, I'm going to bring this one back a little bit. But I'm going to need to do that on every frame now. So if I play the hacky sack back, okay. Now this is the perfect time for this. Go to my custom shelf again. I'm going to select them all. Hopefully I did this right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide these over . Okay, so I just had that start on a totally separate frame. Instead of starting on frame 0, I just quickly changed it to frame 70. Now I've got my little bouncing ball. I'd like to clean that up a little bit more, but this video has been running for about an hour, and I don't want it to it's not bad. Something about it's off. Anyway, if you wanted to, you could create a light, export it, submit it. But all I'm looking for is 3 different balls. I did a bouncing ball that bounces across the screen. I did a ping pong ball that bounces a bunch of times and then rolls away. Do the best you can, and then I did the hacky sack to the best of my ability. Feel free to definitely take a look at these references. You can do the same ones as I did, but I really want you to attempt to use that graph editor I showed you. Try to break tangents using this V. It's the break tangents, and then you can adjust one side or the other individually. Otherwise, you have to anytime you make adjustments, it changes both of them really awkwardly. So the break tangent tool that I have highlighted right there is probably one of the best tools on the graph editor here. But let me know if you have any questions. You just have to do 3 balls. You can do a bouncing ball, you can do a ping pong ball, you can do a bowling ball, you can do any ball that you can pretty much think of. A marble, those little marble balls when they drop, anything you can think of. Just take a look at the references. But if you do have questions, definitely let me know. Shoot me a message on Canvas inbox. I'll be more than happy to answer it. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed the little animation video here, and that's all I got for you. 3 balls, each one bounces, different weights and timings on them, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much for watching.